Well, pleasant summer. Today is Saturday, June 14th, 2025. Those are my two books, Unequivocal Malice and the front book jacket, and After Dark. And I'm going to call this episode Unequivocal Malice or Malice Part 20. This is my 20th discussion of these two books. Malice I published at iUniverse in 2004, and After Dark I published at Book Locker in 2015. And as I've been saying, just a fast digression, my feet down there near the gas and brake pedals have been hurting badly for the past couple months. So hopefully I'll walk through it and that'll wear off. I didn't have any external injury I know of. It's something probably internal with the nerve endings possibly, but I'll be finding out. In any event, I have these Malice things and Tingler quiz available at my channels at TikTok and YouTube. And if you happen to be watching this and you are interested, most people are not, you want to look for different versions of the same thing. My long versions of these, like part 20, are 10 minutes, and the short versions are 3 minutes at my channels at TikTok and YouTube for Michael Kujawski. So Malice here, as mentioned, I called myself Michael Parker, back on that one, a pseudonym. Here, this one was at my formerly home library, located near Fox Point, where I used to live. I lived in Milwaukee County for 45 years. This is from the North Shore Library there in Glendale. And then you see my pseudonym. And of course, back in those days, iUniverse there was in Nebraska at that time. I think they moved to Indiana. And there's the copyright page. And there I thank my relatives or friends or somebody. I wrote it, as I said, 3 years, 2001 to 2004, and published it around then. So here's the contents, what I wanted to look at today in part 20. And it says there I start off with Trouble in Centerville, and I start off with a prologue where there is some potentially violent activity going on between two characters to whet the interest of the reader. Then I have the various chapters in part 1. I am sorry about the lighting here. I'm having trouble. I really should have zoomed in better. Part 1 there is what that says as I list the contents. And it goes down page 93 to chapter 16. I did not do this in After Dark. In After Dark, I did not title or label the chapters. Here I have numbers on them. Each chapter has a title. So I took the time to do that on my first book here. As you see, it stops at chapter 19 for the first section. The second section I call The Past, which is very interesting. That was the beginning of a national trend, or part of a national trend, toward back in the day, as I happen to be an older gentleman. And so in the middle section there, I go over what these characters that I introduced in the prologue, what they were doing in the past. And then the past ends at chapter 27. Then I have the final chapters, the sheriff, the two untested journalists, and a local resort owner and some other folks chasing after the homicide suspect. They narrow it down, and finally by chapter 45, they come to an end of it, and then there is an epilogue. So to give you more of an example, I am sorry about the lighting here. It's a little difficult to see. Here you see some of the titles. Trouble in Centerville, prologue, chapters 1 through 19 in part 1. And the prologue is to grab the reader's attention. Here I just have chapter 1 there, as I mentioned. and chapter 4, and so on. Let me jump to the middle here because the part where I did back in the day there seems to have been popularized back in 2004 around the United States. And it's always nice and actually flattering if you can make a contribution to an industry like the entertainment industry or publishing or the profession. And here we have the past section. I was talking about chapters 20 through 27, part 2. And I go back in the day here with what these characters were doing when they were younger. Let's see what we go on here. For tonight, the spaceship conspiracy against the Kellinger mining project was Vernon Stonehill's alibi. The plan was to simulate a mysterious UFO incident to play off superstition and, most importantly, to ensure that no one ever learned the truth. So there I'm giving some background. Vernon Stonehill was one of the characters in the opening scene in the epilogue. Now I have him here in chapter 20. I'm telling about his background. I believe it was called Centerville in Unequivocal Malice. Let's see, what do I have here? The past, the 1970s. Here's a real old one. I wrote this paragraph essentially back in elementary school, back in the 1960s or 1970s, for one of my homework assignments. The short, bald man dressed entirely in a dark business suit and polished shoes walked timidly out of a back room toward the hotel's commodious guest check-in desk. I'm going to cut these all short because I have been warned that sometimes, again, this is a social media, sometimes other people claim a kind of copyright or something. That one I wrote actually back in the 1960s or 70s when I was in elementary school. Here's the past. I go back to Vernon Stonehill again, the 1970s. Vernon Stonehill, the only survivor of the mine collapse, continued to see the white lights of the helicopter in his mind. Well, here recently they've been talking about countries attacking each other with drones and missiles, bombs, that kind of thing. So I'm just talking, this is actually nowadays nonviolent. I'm just talking about a helicopter that was frightening people or possibly crashed, as I don't want to give away the plot. The past, the 1970s, the card players began arriving at the front door shortly before 8 o'clock. So if you happen to be interested in this sort of thing in literature, if you're a literary agent, I would appreciate hearing from you. If you can find in any of these hundreds of videos I've got at TikTok and YouTube, I have some kind of email address in there somewhere in one of them. And but my name is Michael Kujawski. I am desperately in need of representation to publishing companies. Here is the past, the 1970s. It was Saturday, a bright, lazy June day in 1979. Well, that certainly sounds like the kind of day we're looking at here. That looks like a lazy summer day here in June in southeast Wisconsin near Milwaukee. Where, as I mentioned, I lived in Milwaukee County for 45 years. Stonehill, an 18-year-old senior at Centerville North High School, an alienated kid whose friends had nicknamed him Mars, was supposed to have rotated the tires on his father's car, a 1974 Buick Special. And then I have something about alcohol circulating through his system. Well, I certainly hope it, again, I don't want to give away the plot. I certainly hope it didn't cause him any nerve damage, but sometimes these books are backwards. Maybe I should write a new plot where he does suffer some damage to his nervous system. So, here we have this resort owner I've been talking about. Morehouse sized up the shot, which looked challenging. And this is the past, the 1970s, chapter 25. Still in this popular back in the day section, where people bring up this kind of stuff at beer taverns and high school reunions and things like that. Well, I hope you have a nice weekend, and hopefully I'll see you in better circumstances.